How's it going, everybody? Daner here with North Central Coins, and welcome back to another episode of the most rare and valuable coins in Canada. Today, I'm going to be counting down the top 10 most valuable Canadian proof half dollars. Now, just a little bit about proof coins. Every coin has a unique finish that adds texture and polish to give it a stunning visual appeal. In the past, however, coins have only had two types of finishes, brilliant or frosted, or a combination of the both. But with advancements in technology, coins can now have a plethora of textures and patterns applied to even the smallest areas of a design with pinpoint accuracy. It's fascinating to see how the different finishes can dramatically transform the visual impact of a single coin design. So for a coin to get a proof or PL designation, it means it would have had to have come out of a proof set, meaning it was encased in cellophane and sold for collecting purposes. The general rule of thumb when it comes to proof coins is the farther you go back in the dates, the harder it is going to be to find them in these full sets, especially in a decent shape. If you find a proof set from the 1950s or 1960s, a lot of the time it'll have toning on it that will not be desirable, and the good ones have already been picked over. Most of the cameos have already been accounted for, but that's not saying if you keep your eyes open, you may not be able to cherry pick a good set yourself if you look at flea markets, coin shops, or maybe even on eBay. But today we're going to be counting down the top 10 most valuable Canadian proof half dollars. In the past, I've made plenty of videos detailing all of the rare and valuable coins that you can find from Canada, America, and all around the world. If you guys would like to check those out, and also hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you are new, and hit that bell notification so you can see my new videos as they are being released. Right now, I am releasing coin roll hunting videos on a weekly basis. If you guys would like to follow along with my channel, that is probably the best and most episodic way to do that. So, all of that being said, what do you guys say we get into today's video and count down these extremely rare and valuable half dollars? Let's get it, guys. So as I mentioned at the starting of this video, the farther you go back, the more simple the proof coins are. For a lot of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s proof coins, there are only a few finishes, but now when you buy proof sets, there are several different proof finishes that you can find. Now, the most basic designation that coins will receive is brilliant uncirculated. That means that it's a business strike and it was released for general circulation to be used in the public. Now, the finish of a brilliant uncirculated coin is defined as this basic finish is used on most of Canada's standard circulation coins. With a brilliant uncirculated finish, both the engraved design, the relief, and the background, the field, are shiny. Now, there is also basic proof coins. This finish was designed to show off the most stunning engraving. It's usually reserved for prestige coins. Proof finish coins can have a flawless, mirror-like polish on the background to set off the relief. Engraved designs can be treated with a variety of frosted finishes, each specially selected to accentuate each feature. Then there is the matte proof finish. This finish is unique to the Royal Canadian Mint. It's similar to a standard proof, only with a satin finish on the background instead of a high shine polish. It gives coins a slightly more aged appearance while still allowing for various textures on the relief portion. Then there is also reverse proof. The finish is much more like a regular proof finish, except, as the name suggests, reversed. The background is matte, while the engraving relief shines with glass-like polish. It's like portrait mode for a coin, because the background recedes to keep the focus on the subject. Now, the last finish detailed by the Royal Canadian Mint is the specimen finish. Now, this is completely different from the proof-like, and it is actually my favorite of the different finishes, and one of the most valuable finishes you can find on coins, especially the farther you go back for Canadian. Now, this is defined as, this finish was originally designed to shine a spotlight on our extraordinary technical capabilities. It features precisely machined matte lines for background and highly detailed finish on the relief. Originally, the relief elements had an exclusively brilliant finish, but today our specimen coins feature a wide range of frosting and textures. So if you like to collect Canadian coins, we have many different options when it comes to finishes, whether you like brilliant uncirculated proof, matte proof, reverse proof, specimen. There are just so many options depending on your preference. Now, all of that being said, what do you guys say we start this list off with the 1951 Canadian half dollar? Now, the George VI proof-like coins are a little bit controversial depending on the collector. Some will designate them as proof-like, some will designate them as specimen, because that is actually the official start date for proof coins is 1953. But some of the later George VI will get proof-like designations, especially the 1951 and 1952. I don't know if these coins would have come out of specimen-like sets or proof cellophane sets for the years 1951 and 1952, but regardless of that, if you can get a 1951 Canadian half dollar and it can get designated with the proof-like designation and not the specimen, it can be worth some pretty good money. It can be worth around $245 for a PL62, which isn't a whole lot of money. That's probably going to be a $1,000 set if you're buying it at a coin shop, at least because of the date. But if it can actually get a higher grade around a PL65, it can be worth up to $1,370. That is for the George VI 1951 Canadian proof-like half dollar. As I mentioned, some of those George VI can get the proof-like designation, but it is not too common and it is a little controversial. But 1953, I would say, is the official start date for Canadian proof coins, and the 1953 half dollars are all worth some pretty good money. There are a few different varieties you can look for, so what do you say we go through them right now? The first variety that you want to look for is the 1953 no shoulder fold small date. Now, to differentiate the shoulder fold from the no shoulder fold, basically you have to look at the last I and DEI. If the serifs at the end of the I flare out, then it is a no shoulder fold, and if the I is straight and blunt, then it is a shoulder fold. As far as the large and small date, I will put examples of what they look like on the screen, but basically the date is a little bit thinner and not quite as bold. So if you can identify the no shoulder fold, meaning the I will have flared out serifs and this will have the small date, the 1953 no shoulder fold small date half dollar can be worth up to $1,230 for a PL63. Now the next one that you want to look for is the 1953 no shoulder fold large date. Now this one is actually the rarer of the two varieties. To identify it, you basically want to flip over to the obverse, look at the last I and DEI, and check for those flared out serifs. If it has that, it means you have the no shoulder fold, and if the date looks slightly larger and more bold, I will put an example up on the screen. The 1953 no shoulder fold large date can be worth up to $2,450 for a PL63, and it could be worth a heck of a lot more than that if it got a higher designation. Now, the last of these 1953 varieties that we are going to discuss is the 1953 shoulder fold large date. Now, not quite as valuable as the no shoulder fold large date. Basically, to identify this, you want to flip over to the obverse, look at that last I in the DEI, and if that I looks straight and blunt and the ends of the serifs are not flared out, then you have a shoulder fold. And then you also want to identify the large date, so the letters will be slightly enlarged and bolder than the small date variety. I'll put some examples up on the screen for you to see. And if you can identify this, the 1953 shoulder fold large date can be worth around $1,760 for a PL65 example. Now, the next few half dollars we are discussing are all going to be in sequenced years, and there are no varieties or nothing special that you need to look for. If you can find one of these and it gets a Cameo designation, it will definitely up the price a little bit. Also, for any of the 1960s silver half dollars, if you can find any of those and they get a high designation and also a Cameo designation, they can be worth some pretty good money. So always keep your eyes out for half dollars that have a nice Cameo. If you guys would like to know what a Cameo is, I've actually made a video on it in the past. I will leave a link up in the top corner if you are interested. But the next half dollar that we're going to discuss is the 1954 Canadian half dollar. The 1954 can be worth around $62 for a PL60 and all the way up to $361 for a PL67. Then there's the 1955 Canadian half dollar. This one isn't quite as valuable as the 1954, but can still be worth some decent money, especially if some of the other coins in the set can get some high designations as well. You might be able to make a decent profit if you can score one of the entire sets for around the price of one of the coins that I am describing. For example, the 1955 is worth around $239 for a PL67. So if you can find a 1955 proof set for around $200, it's a pretty good purchase. You might be able to validate the purchase by getting some of the other coins graded, and you might be able to make a pretty decent profit off of that purchase. But the 1955 is only worth around $53 in a PL62. but it can be worth up to $239 for a PL67 example. Next up, we have the 1956. Now, they're getting a little less valuable as we are going along here. You will find that the older the proof set, usually the more valuable the coins. The 1956 is only worth around $32 for a PL62, but it can be worth all the way up to $188 for a PL67. If it gets a Cameo designation, it may jump the price up a little bit as well. And then the last in this date sequence that we are going to discuss is the 1957. Now, this is the least valuable half dollar so far on this list, on the low end especially, worth around $24.30. It's actually not too bad. On the high end, it can be worth around $270 for a PL66 example, which is actually more valuable than that 1956 on the high end, which is pretty interesting. Alrighty guys, we are starting to near the end of this list. We have 2 left to go, and the next coin that I am going to be discussing is actually the most valuable coin on this list and by far the most rare, which is the Canadian 2000p proof half dollar. Now, this is definitely a holy grail coin. There are very few of them out there. I'm not too sure how many people actually know about them, but just a little bit of information about this coin. A 50-cent coin dated 2000p was incorporated into the cover of a desk clock and presented at the launch of the plating facilities in Winnipeg, Manitoba in the year 2000. It is believed that fewer than 276 of these clocks were produced, bearing the date 2000 with a P mint mark on the obverse of the coin under the Queen's bust. Now, these clocks were presented to mint employees, and not very many of them actually got out into the public. Not a whole lot of them are accounted for. They were probably traded to friends and relatives who were collectors, the ones that did get out. So your chances of finding this are pretty much slim to nil, but the fact that they were actually incorporated into desk clocks means there is a small chance you may be able to find one of these at a thrift shop or maybe an antique store. One of these may have just flown under the radar. Someone may have passed away with one of these in their possession and handed it down, and they do not quite know what it is, so they just handed it into a Value Village or a Goodwill, or maybe even sold it at a garage sale for a couple of bucks. So who knows how many of these are actually floating out there unaccounted for, but it is definitely one of the rarest and most valuable modern Canadian coins of all time. Now, if you can find one of these, whether it is in the clock or outside, it is actually designated on the PL scale. It gets a proof designation. It can be worth around $3,400 on the low end and all the way up to $10,600 for a PL67 example, which is the highest graded known example of one that exists currently. Another thing that I wanted to note is, as I've done research on this coin, I have noticed that it is probably one of the most counterfeited Canadian coins that I have encountered. There are several different examples of this being sold on eBay that do not look like the original. Some of them will be in watches, some of them will be in wall clocks, so you definitely want to be wary unless you feel like spending your money on a counterfeit coin. Well, we have come to number 1 on this list. I really hope you guys enjoy these videos and find them helpful. Whether you're an experienced collector or just starting out your journey, it's always good to have an idea of how much some of these different coins can be worth, and the collector's pieces and older proof and specimen coins are definitely good to add to your collection. They increase in value over time. There are only so many accounted for, and there are only so many left out there in the wild. So whether you find one of these sets at a coin shop or maybe antique shop, or you find one of these single coins coin roll hunting, it is definitely good to keep your eyes open because you never know what you can find out there. But number 1 on this list is going to be the 2006 Royal Canadian Mint logo. Now, this is not a valuable half dollar by any means compared to some of the other ones that we have discussed on this list, but it is the most valuable of the modern Canadian proof half dollars. The 2006 RCM logo can be worth around $11.80 on the low end of the PL scale, and it can be worth all the way up to $39.20 around a PL67 example. Now, just to compare, the 2006 Royal Canadian Mint logo is actually much more valuable than the 2006P. The 2006P is only worth around $3 on the low end and $25 on the high end. So if you can find an entire roll of the 2006s with the Royal Canadian Mint logo, and they are all in decent shape and they can get a high grade, you may be able to turn a pretty good profit off of that roll. But I think that is pretty much going to do it for this one. We have counted down the top 10 most valuable Canadian proof half dollars. I've counted down some of the other valuable Canadian proof denominations like pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters in the past if you guys would like to check those videos out. I would also like to announce that I have partnered with Lighthouse Canada. They are one of the largest and most reputable coin supply companies in North America. They have a website and inventory with a massive selection ranging from coin flips, microscopes, all sorts of gear and goodies to help on your coin collecting journey. So I definitely suggest you go to lighthousecanada.ca and enter the promo code DANE20 at your checkout for 20% off of your order. I would love to thank Lighthouse Canada so much. This is an awesome opportunity for me and for you guys to save some money on your coin collecting gear. So, all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, guys. Until the next one, everybody, peace out and have a good one, y'all.